My name is Anthony Darmiento. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and psychotherapist, and I'm originally from New York. I lived outside the country for a bit back and forth, but finally moved out to Portland in 2017. And what do I do outside work? Well, I do some work-related things outside of work. I have a lot of interests that line up. So like neurobiology and anatomy, and I like researching and understanding things related to that, mechanics of that. But also, I like reading, I like playing music. Me and my family, we do hiking, we do all the outdoor stuff that you do in Oregon. Yeah, and just good conversations that sort of probably dip into like psychology and stuff like that, but just with my friends, so I don't know if they know they're getting analyzed, but yeah. So focus more on trauma, childhood trauma, mood disorders, anxiety and depression, mostly are kind of the region that I stay within. I enjoy working with people who are dealing with that for a couple reasons. I think one, it feels like you're very quickly identifying often what is a main factor or variable, and it feels like you can very sort of tangibly understand what's happening and then work with it. It's not like it's an easy progression by any means, but yeah, it's sort of often very quick to understand what's happening there. And then you can, with the client, make such big adjustments in how they view themselves in those situations, where you get to watch a progress that feels like a privilege to be a part of. And it's pretty amazing watching someone undo things powerfully in a session. It's a cool work for a couple of reasons. One is like this really nice intersection of science and connection, where you get to like feel like you're understanding something both in like almost like a research way, and which I just love the like getting kind of see beneath the surface and seeing what's happening, and that is just fills a curiosity for me. But also you get to connect with people, which is just one of the most fulfilling things you can do. I mean, I had a strong suspicion because I've always been oriented towards it. I took like a detour for a while and did consulting more in like a corporate arena, and that scratches an itch for sure, but I always sort of felt like this is more fulfilling, and I could more tangibly see the benefit for individuals. But as far as like a click, I mean, there were some early clients, even just when I was training and didn't really know what I was doing, where just being like present with them and in the room and open and connected, where I don't know specifically that we made like a ton of necessary like progress or insightful work. There's this like one young kid where it just like he opened up and truly was able to explore something and unpack something that he hadn't, and like being a part of that felt like selfishly felt amazing. And it was just so beautiful to watch a kid like feel better. Not that I did anything at that moment, but it was just like, I get to be in the room for this. This is wild. If you're gonna prioritize some things, it's probably becoming either like somatically aware, like what's happening in my body, right? Taking some time to do that. And that may be a preface before you get to like what's happening in my head. But either way, taking space for one of those. And it's really nice when you start like paying attention to what your thoughts sort of like are arranged by in category, which is not, I know it doesn't work like that, but you start seeing themes. Once you start seeing themes, then it gets really interesting. It's like, okay, that can lead to, are those the themes you want? Where do they come from? How do you want to adjust them? But I think it really just starts like, what's happening? How do I feel in my body? And what's going on in my head when I feel that way? So it may be really difficult at first, but taking just a few minutes interspersed throughout the day, or at the beginning of the day, or at the end of the day, to check in. Definitely a lot flit in and out, and having two kids under 2, it's tough to always incorporate them. But one thing that has remained consistent amongst all the goals is having that moment in the morning. For me, it's a little time aside, no screens, no stimulus really of any sort other than just stretching, checking in, and then really, okay, like what am I doing today? Before the whole day takes over, before the chaos starts or I come to work, it's like, what am I trying to do today? And if that's not gonna happen today, where can I put that where it doesn't build up and stress me out? So again, that's like maybe a 10-minute practice. I'm fairly good at keeping consistent. There's often such a convincing that the way that you're thinking is A, right, or B, the only way. And it's nice to just kind of recognize that this is just a temporary state, even maybe just a metabolic state that is adjusting this way of thinking, and things can shift. And often some of the smartest, most analytical people have convinced themselves that this is the only way to do it. But that is the way that the brain sort of like continues to fortify that. So it's like you almost have to, in some ways, like not fight your brain, but step back from it for a sec and question. For other people, I think there's this idea of like, well, you just gotta like change your mindset or shift or just think your way out of it or just do. And I'd say like, that's nice in theory to say, but when you're looking at, this is like structural changes and the brain for this individual who's in that state, it's doing what it's doing because it's trying to protect that individual. It's developed this habit over a long course because it's been helpful, and there's actual like physical changes in the brain that have oriented it to do this, and it's doing its job. You don't just like change that. You just have to be really open and connected with the person, because you're looking at like small adjustments that take sometimes really tough work to make these changes in shifts in perspective. So it's not as simple as just saying like, well, just don't think that way or something like that. There's some pretty well-established like pillars of health, things that we all recognize in a state that contribute to mental and emotional well-being, and we all just fall short on the scale all the time. Like you can never get perfect. But if you were to like take a second and analyze like what is something that most powerfully would contribute, like sleep, exercise, diet, nutrition, screen health, all that sort of stuff, that can be really overwhelming. And you know you maybe need to do it or to address it, but to break that into smaller, more manageable steps. So if it's like exercise, it's like, okay, yeah, I gotta get to the gym. But it's nice to just say, okay, like I just gotta get in my gym clothes. And then, okay, like often that kind of keeps the motivation going, but not to get overwhelmed by this big area where you feel really is the big issue and contributing to this difficult time period, but sort of go, okay, yes, that's something I'm working on, but I want to manage it in smaller steps and then be happy with that progress because it builds. So you can take a really slow slope into the goal, but it's just about some level of consistency and being happy with like little small steps along the way.